go ahead and say that if the US wanted to squish the UK like a bug underneath their shoe, they could probably do that with 2 arms tied behind their back and with a blindfold on. How's it going, guys? Oh, welcome. I'm excited to see this. Thank you so much for all the likes and all the subs and literally every new video that we're putting up. So many new guys are joining the community. I love doing this, but also to see you guys enjoying the videos enough to do all that engagement stuff, likes, comments, and subbing. It's genuinely incredible. So thank you. I love you. It's awesome. Now let's see how easy it will be for you guys over in the US across the pond to crush me. This is going to be interesting and probably going to scare me.
We all know US and UK are close allies.
I hope it stays that way.
Armed might is far greater than that of UK. But just for argument's sake and to learn what sort of limitations we...
Bro, look at the size of us compared to the US. We are literally a stain on the ass cheek.
Waging warfare across the ocean implies, this video will explore US invading the United Kingdom. So with just the airplanes and ships left to count on, is an invasion over the Atlantic viable?
Probably.
And now, could US military successfully invade UK if it wanted to? Some rules will apply. US gets no overseas bases and all other countries are impassable. Distance from US to UK mainland is pretty big, especially when reaching London. Before trying to land any troops, the seas must first be clear of British ships, and Royal Air Force must be suppressed. US has a massive advantage when it comes to naval assets.
Okay, so the UK has 13 Type 23 Duke frigates, 6 Type 45 Daring destroyers, and the US, okay, yep.
Basically, all of its assets are made for oceans and could operate near UK if needed. While the Americans would need to sail to and from Britain, taking weeks away from their actual presence, US Navy could pretty much do whatever it pleases near the UK. It's interesting to point out that most of US ships do not carry anti-ship missiles. US Navy prefers to use their carriers for such missions. British Royal Navy is to go down a similar route. Their Harpoon missiles are old and set to be retired soon. Not all ships have them. Only a minor part of the British fleet has modern air defense systems. Basically, the sea war would be fought above the sea and under it, but the British lacked anti-ship missiles for its aircraft. Furthermore, British Tornado aircraft ceased to train for the anti-ship missions almost 2 decades ago.
Great.
Basically, if UK had to try and do air raids against US fleet, it would be down to 2 weapons, laser-guided bombs and short-range tactical missiles. Brimstone in particular might be the weapon of choice. While its warhead is tiny, Brimstone 2 has a decent range. Still, against dozens of potent destroyers designed to deal with many anti-ship missiles at once, it's unlikely UK could do much. British best bet would be their submarines. They're fairly modern. Theoretically, the British could use their ballistic missile subs as attack.
So we got 3, 6, 10, we got 11. We got 11 submarines. 90s tech. 90s technology. So let me just take off 7 of that already. We've got 4 because 1990s technology. Fucking brilliant.
Subs as well, and speed up the entry into service of another astute sub, while keeping one Trafalgar running a bit longer.
Oh wait, so... Yo, 80s tech, but there's 31 of them. Holy shit. 16 Virginia tech subs, 2000, 2010s tech, 2000 tech, 90s tech. 18 Ohio missile subs, I get 68.
Rummaging for retired sailors to crew it. Still, the British would be far outnumbered.
Yep.
US submarine fleet dwarfs theirs. Given a bit less time on station and British home advantage when it comes to resupply, the balance of power may not be quite 6-1. Still, it's no question the British subs would get hunted down within months. Aerial anti-submarine platforms would also play a large role.
Shit.
And while the British could use all their assets, even just the deployable portion of US assets would be enough to force the British subs into hiding. Furthermore, US carrier-based air power would make it hard for British anti-sub helicopters to operate. The main force projection would be done by US carrier.
Can we all agree that being on a submarine and getting like hit by a torpedo and sinking you would be absolutely terrifying? Imagine being in that submarine knowing you're going down to literal death. That would be horrifying.
Naturally. US could choose whether to use more carriers initially and then have less available later on, or to maintain a smaller number on constant patrol. To defeat the British Air Force, the former is more likely. US nominally has 11 carriers, but only 9 air wings. It does have an additional support wing, which is a lot bigger. It may be the source of 1 or 2 more combat wings after some months of preparation. But crews aren't the only issue. Lifespan of a carrier necessarily involves lengthy maintenance periods. Important to note is that the deployable period doesn't mean the carrier can actually be on a mission the whole time. Usually 1 or 2 deployments are made during those 18 months. Missions are usually 6 to 8 months long, and several months are needed to prep the carrier and its wing for another mission.
Okay.
Shorter missions might give more deployments in the short term, but in the long term, they would require even more maintenance for every month spent out at sea. Because of all that, it's unrealistic US would send out more than 6 carriers at once, after a few months of prep time. Similar issues would affect the aviation assault ships. Perhaps 4 to 6 could be deployed at once, after some preparations.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is just going to be an absolute a W in every single column for the US here, right? Because no matter what, the US military is more powerful. It's a literal superpower or super country, whatever the hell it's called. We've got more of everything. We're much more tiny, and we're also shite. So we're fucked in every aspect of the situation. We are done.
British lack those, as in the real world, they timeshare some US spy satellites. US aircraft would be looking for targets as well. Britain would have no real means of scouting the US bases.
Right,
US AWACS-type planes would be plentiful, while British ones would mostly be trapped on the ground, with runways and highways being mostly inoperative. Thus the Royal Air Force would slowly get destroyed on the ground.
Nice.
When they would be able to get some planes airborne, they still may not choose to engage them.
I'm right here, guys. I'm literally right there. So am I safe? I need to know, am I alright? Am I... This isn't shit.
Americans. As it's likely US attack waves would be made of close to 100 planes with possibly as many fighters as Britain would muster per each local interception, or more. The best Britain could hope for would be a roughly equal kill ratio in the air. And when the losses on the ground are included, over months of a protracted bombing campaign, US would still be left with a sizable force.
Losses during the first 6 months would be dozens to 100 planes lost in the air for the UK and 100 plus planes lost on the ground. US probably under 100 planes lost in air combat. So that's actually not like as one-sided as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be an absolute walk in the park, but that's not that bad.
All this didn't even include the US Air Force. While the scenario requires it to use the bases inside the US,
here we go.
Britain could be reached. At first, bombers would be deploying cruise missiles, but later on, they would be likely used for bombing missions. But could the Air Force tactical plane fleet help out as well? With very ample in-flight refueling, the answer is yes.
These fuckers have got bloody laser beams from the space. We're beat. We are defeated.
The US operates the world's biggest air tanker fleet. The Hercules-based tankers, however, are too small and would use most of the fuel just to get near Britain. Still, the remainder of the fleet has a substantial fuel offload capacity, and tankers could refuel each other. Such ops may sound complex, but compared to what the British did in Falklands War, they're fairly basic. The British used a dozen tankers to refuel themselves repeatedly, keeping the bomber refueled throughout all of the route. While all of the tanker fleet would not be available due to maintenance, the rest could still offload significant fuel loads just outside Britain if
That's
needed.
pretty crazy.
With several refuelings per plane,
That's pretty
US
crazy.
Air Force could still expect to have around 400 combat planes in action practically every day. The British would really have no chance in the air. Within months,
Total UK combat planes 180 with 30 plus stored. Total number of US combat planes in area per day 700 fighters, strike jets, 100 bombers. Yo, nah, this is a joke, man. You guys, nah. If anything ever starts, you guys have to give us some. I'm not having this. No. If there's a war between the UK and the US anytime soon, you guys have to come on now, give us something. Give us a couple of planes, a couple of submarines, a couple of carriers. Just fucking even playing field a little bit, okay? Because this is not right.
the US would have complete control of the air. and thus the second phase of the invasion might commence. By that time, British ships would be mostly dead, even if they hugged the shores and just aided in the air defenses. British submarines might hold out a bit longer, if not being used to actively hunt down US ships. But even if British subs managed to kill 2 US vessels for each of their own, final result would be the end of the Royal Navy.
Nice.
So at around 6 months or so into the war,
we'll be
the
down to ground
landings
feet.
would be mostly unopposed.
Okay, let's get a laugh now. So we're down to ground forces for the UK because the Navy's gone. British land forces, 89,200 active army and marines, 27,000 army reserves, 30,500 army regular marine reserves. So total, let's say 90, let's say 30, 120, 150, about 145,000, right? Kinda, maybe 150,000. 8 WASP LHD. I don't know what this means. I don't. Why is this? Oh, it's because we're down to our land forces. They've still got their navy. Okay, this is bad, man. We're so defeated.
For the Royal Army defending the shores. 6 months would be enough for US to assemble pretty much all of their active and reserve assets. In addition to landing ships, US could count on numerous cargo assets of its Sea Lift Command and Reserve Fleet in case a port is secured. US Airborne could also help, with the numbers shown probably growing with newly trained paratroopers. Getting additional heavier equipment for them, however, would not be likely, given the time limit. US transport plane fleet is pretty big, and should be able to drop all the airborne troops within days. US could be looking at close to 30,000 troops during the first day, and close to 20,000 more the day after. Subsequent days would see fewer and fewer troops being added, and more supplies being brought in. The British would enjoy more soldiers than shown before. The reserve mentioned covers only the soldiers receiving some training periodically, and soldiers for whom some heavy equipment is stored. In an event of a
active army troops is 476,000, Marines 151,000, Army National Guard 345,000, Army Reserve 500 to 500,000. Possible UK mobilization 2019, first month 147, after 6 months 420, after 9 months 1.1 million. That's actually a crazy number to think the UK population is 66 million that have literally 1.1 million
total
troops.
war. Britain would be using those 6 months to mobilize as many soldiers as possible. While they would be equipped with basically just rifles, and while their training would be less than adequate, they would still boost the overall numbers several times. Yet all those soldiers may not be enough, as UK has a problem of geography. Its landmass is just too large. Its coastline is very long. Even when taking just the western part of its coastline into account, the area to be defended is huge. And what about the islands? Perfect for US to take and entrench themselves at.
You know what I love so much so far, chat? Nobody has mentioned Northern Ireland yet.
And what about Northern Ireland? There are just too many places for US to concentrate its assault on. The British would not be able to move their forces around easily and protect those islands or the Northern Ireland. So the islands would fall one by one. Then either Northern Ireland would be taken or part of Great Britain would fall. Hard to traverse overland Scotland would be an obvious choice, though that would also slow down US breakthrough as well later on. Cornwall or Devon are also decent picks, as British defenders lack room to swoop down on the US beachhead from all directions, though such areas would likely be more heavily populated by British military to begin with. Once the US manages to secure ports and airfields and brings in US Army reinforcements, it would be basically game over for the British.
Yep.
US would build up its helicopter force on the areas it has taken, which is considerable.
Total is 3,012 and total 203.
While the British have a fleet of their own to help quickly distribute its forces where needed, their numbers are small.
What would be the point, though? Why would we even do this in the first place? Just get the fucking white flag out and start waving it. You know what I mean? Just give up. Don't even... There's no point. It would literally just be a waste of life. Because loads of people would be dying for absolutely no reason.
Both sides would of course be losing many helicopters. US to British low-level air defenses and British to US fighter cover, which would continuously be flying over the important areas. The British would have only a small part of shown inventory of heavy weapons present at any one point the US attacks. While US would also not be disembarking thousands of its Abrams tanks or 10,000 of other heavy combat vehicles, the overwhelming fire support coming from various directions would more than make up for it. Fire support from the ships may come in form of MLR units firing from the ships rather than actual gun barrage. US ships still lack long-range gun rounds. Attack helicopters are another way of concentrating force in one area quickly. But again, the British are far outmatched, even if just half of US numbers are present. The issue for the Americans would be time. As the scenario asks what can be achieved within 1 year, US would be under pressure to progress from their multiple beachheads. Northern Ireland is likely to fall within the 1-year time limit, but only minor parts of the Great Britain would be overrun by the Americans during the same time period.
Ah, shit,
The
there we
British
go.
would put up a hell of a fight. Ground troop loss ratio would favor the British somewhat, but when Air Force and Navy losses are added in, where Britain would suffer more heavily, the US would come out fine. With added large chunks of conquered territory, the US could call itself a victor.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, that went exactly how I thought it was going to go. Yeah, I hope to God that we don't ever have problems again, because that would suck, and I would be dead very, very soon, quick, and I wouldn't be able to do nothing about it. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video.